Definitely the greatest act of love ever. Especially he who is perfect dying for the imperfect. He who is totally just, righteous, dying for the unjust, unrighteous. The sinner, you and me, and everyone else. One of the proofs that I believe that shows that Jesus Christ is God, like he's equal in nature with God. He's truly in a unique way, Son of God, is because no human being can take the sins on himself or everybody else. I'm responsible for my life. You're responsible for yours. I'm going to be responsible for my sins. You're responsible for yours. For him to take on the responsibility and taking my sins upon himself, it has to be God. I mean, just the way I think of it philosophically. Anyway, so this matter of the cross, this preaching of the cross, the talking of the cross, the sharing of the cross, I could go video after video. And there's millions of books. That's maybe an exaggeration, but that everything centers in this. All the books has been written about the cross, and songs, I already mentioned some of those, only a few. Like, oh my goodness, the cross of Jesus dying for us is just remarkable. I never get tired of talking about it because it's precious, it's fresh. It's a demonstration of love, maximum, extreme love for you and me. Really wonderful. What he did is he literally finally took the cup. Remember he said, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. He took the cup. He took the suffering. Included in that cup maybe was the beating and the beating this way and the stripes on his back and his body and his backside all the way down, all the way up, just all the other stuff that he went through, the rod, but especially the cross. And put into that poisonous, horrible, corrupt, horrible, evil cup of suffering. He drank it down. He took it. I don't know if I said this before. I might have. I'm sorry if I'm repeating this, but I've heard that one of the ways that the Romans would cause a criminal's death is they would literally take a horrible potion of very horrible and dreadful tasting poison that really causes pain and suffering when you drink it. And let's say you have a whole set of criminals and then they would hand it to one. If the one drank it all, it would cause a lot of like seizures and pain and suffering, and then they would die. The others would go free. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard this years and years ago. I thought, wow. But if you drank just a little and you handed it to the next person, they have to drink it. The next person has to drink it. Next person. If you drink a little, I think you die, but it's slowly and it's not as painful, is what I understand. Is it possible that if that is true, that Jesus literally drank it all, like good to the last drop, nothing in there? He emptied it completely on the cross so that we would be free and we wouldn't be criminals and we'd be innocent. I don't know if that's true, but the fact is he did decide to drink the cup. He voluntarily drank it. And what he did is he took Adam's sin, Adam and Eve. He took their sin approximately 6,100 something years ago. It could be 10,000, between 6,000 and 10,000. Anyway, the genealogies and all, you add them all up, all the family trees. And he took that sin, the fruit. I know everyone says it's like an apple and all that, but it's just a fruit. I don't think it's an apple. But anyway, some fruit of the tree. She ate it, gave it to him. He ate it. First sin of human beings. He took that sin and sacrificed himself for it. So everybody in the past looked forward to this one coming. And it was already mentioned in Genesis chapter 3. Immediately after they sinned, God said that there's one coming. He gave a promise of one that's going to destroy the devil's power and be a redeemer, a deliverer for us, a savior. So way back here in Genesis chapter 3, 3:15, I believe. Anyway, all the way he took, and see, if Jesus died on the cross here, right about here, 4,000 years, let's say. He died for everyone in the past. I think I've done this before, but just let's go over it real quick. Everyone in the past, all these sins, and they looked forward to it. And then we live up in this time frame, 2,000 years later, and we look in the past back. They look forward, we look back, and the cross of Jesus is what took all that sin, all the punishment. And just as a quick review, the sayings now, I mentioned those, each one of them. Maybe go a little bit further in that just to think about this. In the first 3 sayings, and it's possibly from 9 o'clock to 12, John said 6th hour, but remember I said that could be, Roman time, or it could be, or it could be Jewish time, 6th hour. But anyway, he did these 3 things probably in the first 3 hours, or 2.5, 3. And what he was doing is helping others. He was still ministering, which is crazy. All that pain, he's still thinking about others and loving others. Well, he's thinking about us the whole time. The whole time was for us. He didn't have to die for himself. He certainly was innocent, the just for the unjust, like Peter said in 1 Peter chapter 4 or 3. Anyway, but then in a sense, the last 3 hours became really the dreadful ones. This was horrible, the pain that he was going through. But he said, Father, forgive them. He said, Father, forgive them. Then he said, you shall be with me in paradise. And he talked about his mother being taken care of. We'll get into that when we get in the book of John. And then all of a sudden, the darkness hits. Now, it could have been that he was put on the cross, probably not, but at about 12, and that's when darkness hit as soon as he was on the cross. His son is on the cross. But maybe not. It seems like he was put on the cross from 9 to 3. And by the way, I've mentioned this, but the shroud, there's a shroud of Turin. We don't have to talk about it. People who studied that, by the way, I'll talk about this some other time probably. People who studied that, they think that it could have been, the actual wrapping of Jesus in the grave when he was put in the grave. But anyway, the people who studied that went into just deep studies on crucifixions. And they read Talmud, which is the Jewish thing. And they actually read Roman records in Rome. And really, they didn't know about probably Jesus' death or something, but they found that the shortest death on a cross was 32 hours. It's just over a day. A day and a half, is that right? Oh, I'm terrible at it. I think so. Anyway, 24 hours. Yeah, 36 hours. That's pretty amazing. That's 1 day and a half, I think, if I'm right. But 36 hours. Did I say 36? I think it's 32 hours. My bad. And then, my bad, 32 hours. And then they said the longest death that they found in Romans records, I said it was 11 days because that's what I've heard, but it's actually 13 days. 13 days, 2 full weeks, almost 2 full weeks of a person being on a cross and dying. He died within 6 hours or less. That's pretty amazing. And the thing about Jesus is he gave up his spirit. He said, Father, into my hands, and then he died, and then he gave up his spirit. I'm going to talk about that in a second more when we get to it. And it's almost like, though, the last 3 hours was experiencing, he didn't go to hell. Well, he might have gone to Hades. We'll talk about that in verses in the future. But he did not go and burn in hell, I don't believe. But it's experiencing, I put a question mark, like it was things about hell that people experience. Hell's not a bad word. It's not a cuss word. It can be used as a cuss word, but it's an actual place. Jesus mentioned it a lot. Other writers mentioned it. The Bible mentions it. Okay? But the point is he experienced things that hell is like, and it's right on the cross. For example, he experienced darkness. Remember, the Bible talks about, if you don't know this, the Bible talks about hell being outer darkness. So for 3 hours there's outer darkness. I mean, think about that. And I still think it was more local in that region because there's a few references to it, like in Egypt and all. But if it was all the earth, then I think there would be a lot more historical mentioning of it. For 3 hours, how many eclipse? There's some sort of thing where the sun's not shining. I don't think it's just clouds. I think it's a supernatural darkness. But what I am saying is that for that to be darkness for 3 hours, it's probably a lot of people would have mentioned it. And I think it's more local. Local means in that Palestine region, maybe down there in Mount Sinai. Egypt might have had a taste of it, a little bit over to Jordan and all, just different places around that area, but not the whole world or the whole Mediterranean world or something. Because if they were doing a fabrication, they were making up a story like the whole earth, they would have said, yeah, that's fake because it didn't happen in our time. But I think it was in that region. All right, so, and that has been mentioned, like I said, in some in other writings. So darkness was sort of like what hell is. And then loneliness, the feeling of loneliness, my God, why have you forsaken me? A loneliness sense. You can't fellowship and party and have fun in hell. Wow, you just don't want to go there. You want to serve God. You want to give your life to Jesus. But yeah. And then, by the way, it's interesting when he said, why have you forsaken me? It seems to be the only time that Jesus in his whole life did not hear God on what to do. He always knew what to say, what to do. God was always directing him. He had his answers constantly. Why? He didn't ask God why. He didn't have it at that time because I feel like he was separated. He felt separated for somewhat on that time, during that time. And that was near, I think, probably 3 o'clock. Maybe it's 2:30 to a quarter to, I don't know. But loneliness, that's what hell is like. And then thirst, there's no water. You're dehydrated, of course. We've talked about that. But also hell is like serious thirstiness. If you go to Luke 16, it says a rich man lifted up his eyes. He said, please send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger and give me a drop of water. I'm tormented in these flames. So thirst. And then, of course, God said enough. And then finally at the end, he came out of that maybe he came out of that 3 hours of suffering and pain and what it's really like to be away from God and in spiritual darkness, emotional darkness, not just physical. And then God says enough, over, it's over. And that's when Jesus said it's over, finished. There's a lot of things that he finished at that time. He paid for our sins. He finished the law, the stuff and the sacrifices and all that. And then he says, like he quoted a particular psalm that he learned. What psalm is that? I can't remember at the moment. Maybe I'll look it up later. But he quoted. Oh, I want to look it up now. See if I can find it just real quick. He quoted what he learned from Mary on her knee as a little baby, as little kids. It's a Jewish prayer. And is it Psalm 32 or something? Let me see if that's it. I'm not sure about that. See if I can find it really quickly. If I can't, that's okay. Not 32. Is it 31, 7? No. Uh-oh. I'm not going to remember it probably. Ooh, where is that? No, it's not there. Anyway, I'll look it up later and find it for you. Oh wow, that's some stuff right there. I'm sorry, kid. Maybe I can look it up just for a second. Let me see if I can look it up here real quick. Here, see if this is it. It is in 31 verse. Here it is. I found it. Yeah. Into your hands I commit my spirit. That's 31 verse 5. So he says, into your hands I commit my spirit. Now he prayed that. That was a prayer that the psalmist, and he probably learned that as a kid, only he added the word Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. But he probably learned that when he was a little Jewish boy, that prayer. And here he is offering his spirit back to God. So it's not like his spirit is separated from God, but he says, I commit my spirit. And that's what we should do. By the way, quick story I want to end with, I think, in this discussion. And that is my great-grandmother, and many other, not a lot, maybe not all, but my great-grandmother died similarly, not on a cross, thank God. But she was in a bed of sickness. She had double pneumonia. And this is years ago, of course. I never met my great-grandmother. But in the hills of Tennessee, Appalachia area, she knew she was going to die. Think about this now. she's, oh man, she's a strong woman of God, really, really walked with God, had miracles happen and everything, really amazing woman, godly woman. And her kids, my grandmother and my aunt, you know, well, not my aunt, my great aunt, I guess, and then the great uncle. They were sick, and they had beds in the same room and off the side. But she decided. First, she said, "Go get my sister." I don't remember her name. She told somebody, "Go get my sister and tell her I'm going to be going. You know, I'm going to be dying." Well, she knew it, and just like Jesus. And so he left. Or she left him. I think it was a he that went to get her, and she talked to each of her children while they're crying like this, and she gave instructions to each one. Reminds me of Jesus giving the disciples instructions before he died. But she said, do this and that, talk to each one, probably said, I love you and everything else. Finally, the sister came, and just almost immediately after that, as I understand the story, she came, she came in. And my grandmother looked at her and said, I don't know how much she said, but she said, I'll see you up yonder, which means I'll see you over in the other place. And she took her pillow and pulled it back from her head, lied her head back down, and just closed her eyes and died. That's how I'd like to die if I was as a Christian. Yeah, it's up to God and how he wants to do it. But that's a great, really great way to die. Okay, hey, I'm about to die. I want to say goodbye. I'll see you up yonder. Pull the pillow out, lie her head back down, just quietly died, just like that. Waited. So Jesus said, I commit my spirit to you. And then he breathed his last breath, just nodded his head down. Then he died. Just in control. No one, in a sense, no one took his life. It wasn't the blood. It wasn't the blood that was shed. It wasn't his dehydration. It wasn't like suffocating. That's how most people die. Asphyxic. I know the word. I can't think of it. Asphyxiation. It's close. Where you can't breathe because your weight is like this, and you push up, and the way you're positioned and everything, people die from not able to breathe. Some die from heart attacks and all that. So he just died. He said, nobody takes my life, but I lay it down of myself. That's what he said. And he just simply, like my great-grandmother, laid down. He said, Father, he didn't say it this way. Father, he said it with a loud voice. He said, it is finished with a loud voice. And he cried this probably in a loud voice. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Or maybe the first one was a loud voice. I don't know, one of those. And then he just went ahead. Okay, now it's time. Wonderful. In control. That's wonderful. All right, there you go. A few more facts about this. I hope it's getting deeply into your heart and not just up here. You just the sense of what God did for us from his heart to yours, that he really did give his life to the Lord for you on your behalf. Amen.